slow. But the judges this week are moving fast, and a remarkable court order today as a federal judge orders the chief of ICE to show his butt up into court in Minneapolis on Friday. Joe Tamburino is a criminal defense attorney. He's our legal analyst, and he's with us to talk about it. Joe, remarkable, is that the right word for this?
Well, thanks for having me on, Jason. Yes, definitely remarkable, especially from a judge. Judge Schultz has been a judge here in the District of Minnesota for 20 years. He was a George W. Bush appointee in the second term. I would say on the conservative side, a very good jurist. And for him to come out and said, look, enough is enough. Now you got to put up or shut up. And what he issued was basically an order to show cause, which means either you got to explain why you're doing this, and if it's not good enough, then I'm going to hold you in contempt.
And this order, and you've got it in front of you,
right?
It's really explicit about sort of the frustration that the judge had here.
Right. Especially when the judge lists there are dozens of these orders, and it doesn't seem like you all at ICE are complying with them. And we have to understand what these orders are about. And, part of this is referencing Judge Menendez when she had her hearing yesterday about whether or not she should prohibit ICE. What she said from the bench is, well, look, can't you get what you want, city, state, by bringing these habeas corpus motions when something goes wrong? Well, that's what's been happening. And Judge Schultz is saying, we're issuing these orders, dozens of them, and you guys aren't complying. And so he picked this one, which is the one involving Juan TR, and he clearly said that, look, the court has ordered you to do this, to release this guy on January 14th. Within 7 days, you haven't. And so now enough is enough. You got to come to court and tell us why.
We've been talking about the state going after the federal government. But this is the other sort of battle that happens when you have a mass immigration sweep up, right?
Right.
Where you do have sort of people who specialize in immigration law and finding people. There have been many reports of people who are swept up in Minneapolis, put on a plane to Texas, and then, they investigate and say like, oh, turns out you are here legally.
Correct.
Have a good day.
That's right.
Right. You're in the middle of El Paso, Texas.
That's right. Maybe you're here legally. Maybe you're seeking asylum. You have some legal justification for being here, but you got swept up into it. And really, this comes down to how the administration has been doing this whole ICE surge. Because if you look back on the 8 years under President Obama, in the last, I think, 4 or 5 presidents, he did the most deportations. In fact, some on the left used to call him the deporter in chief. He did so many deportations. But he did it professionally. He did it by the rules. We never heard of these things happening. But now we have this surge, and you're quite right. People are just getting swept up.
Obviously, in the political environment we're in now, people start asking questions about the judge. Is the judge a lefty hack trying to take out the Trump administration? And I read that this judge clerked for Justice Scalia.
Right.
So
yeah,
he's probably not a lefty judge.
That's right. That's a safe bet to say he is not a lefty judge. And this is what I severely dislike about, the Twitter sphere and social media. It's that all of a sudden some judge says, here's my order. And the first thing that people do is, oh, look at this. He donated to X, Y, and Z, or he went to some party with ABC. And they say, well, of course, he's compromised. No. We have our own private lives. If you want to donate to PETA, you can. If you want to donate to the Federalist Society, you can.
Joe Tamburino is our guest. We're talking about these legal cases. What could happen with this, I guess? What happens if, can they end this? Can they order the release of a bunch of people? What are the options?
Well, for this particular one, what I think is going to happen is he being the head of ICE, can rectify the situation by releasing Juan TR pursuant to the judge's order.
And then this individual case gets solved.
That's right. Yeah. So these are all individual cases. And when you have something like this where the federal judge is saying, look, either comply or tell me why not, and I could possibly hold you in contempt, I would imagine from now till Friday morning, this guy is going to be released, and therefore there won't be a hearing.
Too bad, though, right? Wouldn't it be great to have a hearing? I'd love to hear the judge, how mad he is. And this is the other part of this. Even if you are a Trump supporter as a judge, and you have plenty of experience with judges get pretty pissed when people don't do what they tell them to do.
Absolutely, especially when you have a judge, and I'm not saying Judge Schultz is in this category, but sometimes you will have a judge that is of the same political mind as you. So say you have a conservative judge who's of the same political mind as the Republican Party, just as an example. But you have people who are defying your orders, whether they are part of your party or part of your political persuasion.
Yeah.
You're not going to like that.
I mean, the statement, some of this, it's worth reading the whole thing because this court has been extremely patient with respondents, even though respondents decided to send thousands of agents to Minnesota to detain aliens without making any provision for dealing with the hundreds of habeas petitions and other lawsuits that were sure to result. The court's patience is at an end. Youch.
It is a youch.
Yeah.
And,
and embarrassing, honestly, just another thing to me, no matter what your views are on this enforcement effort, it goes to how unprofessional it has been from top to bottom.
That's exactly right. I'm happy you use that word about unprofessional. What many people totally don't understand is that you have political people, of course, but behind all these offices, the people who are running the show, the people who are doing good work, whether they're Democrat or the Republican, they are professionals. They want to be professional prosecutors. Similar to what we had just a couple of weeks ago where 7 or 10 people left our U.S. Attorney's office.
Right.
These are people who want to do a good job. They could do other types of jobs, but they have chosen this field. But politics gets involved, and then the next thing you know, we're having court orders defied.
Joe Tamburino is with us. Joe, the other story that's sort of broken today from the FBI, and, another day, another investigation of something tangential to what's going on here. But the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, said that they're going to investigate these sort of encrypted Signal app chats that have been tracking ICE. And it, on the surface, you say, I think people have the right to have a text chat and to even say, like, I think this is the license plate of an ICE agent. But is there part of the law where people could be at risk for sort of coordinating and conspiring against the federal government or the law enforcement?
Well, sure. I mean, if you, for instance, if you are using something that's out in the public like Facebook, when I think it was the Minneapolis Police Department a few years ago was accused of doing some racial profiling or something along that line for looking at Facebook posts to see if there were gang affiliations. Well, that was a wrong accusation then, because if you put something on Facebook for the world to see, well, then the world's going to see it, and police can use it. And so they could try to use that, but then if they're going to go any deeper, they're going to have to get search warrants. If you have actual private messaging, you're going to have to get search warrants. But whatever is available to the public, that's available to you and me, is also available to police.
Yeah. And the reality is that the other side of that, as First Amendment experts are saying, is like, look, you're allowed to have text threads that say, I think this vehicle's an ICE agent. And
that's correct.
You're not stealing information from anywhere. You're using public information.
That is correct. What they're probably, and I can't speak for the FBI, but what they're probably trying to tie this to is there some type of conspiracy to commit an obstruction crime, like a conspiracy to try to obstruct or perhaps intimidate ICE? I think it's going to be a stretch to do, but obviously if they could gather public information, they could use that. It's just almost like in a lot of drug cases, conspiracy cases. A lot that is said on messaging pertaining to drug activity is legal. You're not saying I'm going to buy your cocaine, but you might say things about where people are going to meet or what's going to happen or who's driving or something like that. And you could use those otherwise innocuous words to try to fit into a conspiracy.
Oh, I think people would freak out if you start prosecuting people for this sort of thing.
Yeah,
but here we are. Joe Tamburino, really good stuff. Thank you.